Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka... And we are back with another Twitter thread. Today I'm asking you a very specialized question, which is probably why we have like no responses. We're talking about Konami policy, and please, I am begging you, I want to continue playing paper events. Please don't. Since 2002, there have been a ton of changes to Konami policy. I want to talk today about some of the funniest and the reasons as to why they were implemented. And I'm beginning with the one that probably got the most media coverage, the change to the hygiene policy. You are expected to be clean when you enter a tournament. Neglecting to wash or put on clean clothes contributes to an unpleasant atmosphere at the event, as the tournament can be crowded and the day can be long. Persons who neglect self-care to the point that they are negatively impacting the tournament may be asked to correct the issue in order to continue the event. Correct the issue. Go wash your ass. Wash your ass, dog. Let's see what you all came up with. I think the current time rules are better than the old ones. Dyer, regrettably, 100% correct here. For anyone who ever played with the old time rules, it was not uncommon to see rounds going 40 minutes over, even at locals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was not a sustainable way to do time, and while the current end of phase rules aren't perfect, they're a damn sight better than what we had to sit through in the past. Removing the secret effect of Mind Crush to look at the opponent's hand. Okay, so Mind Crush has changed like 9 times as to whether or not you actually look at the hand to ensure they have the card. The most recent change is that verification is not allowed, which means that, you know, if you activate the effect of a searcher while you don't have a targeted deck, your opponent doesn't get to confirm by thumbing through your entire list. Similarly, you don't have to reveal you have the card in hand when saying no to a Mind Crush. The funny part about this one is that it happened like 3 weeks after a Vrains episode in which Mind Crush resolved. My love of the Xyz ruling is deeply rooted in the very simple question, where are the Xyz materials located? So this one was strange. They were never really supposed to be on the field, but the whole thing got screwed up by a Kevin Tewart Facebook post in which he said in like the judges lounge something to the effect of, yes, it will trigger, which caused all manner of nonsense for exactly 1 weekend of the nascent Xyz format. And contrary to popular belief, it wasn't a weekend in which Sangan was being detached for rank 3s. It was actually a weekend in which Reborn Tengu was being detached for rank 4s like Utopia. By the time Sangan was playable in rank 3 strategies, there really wasn't too much you could do with it. People often talk about the change to extra deck summon mechanics from the April 1st, 2020 revisions. Hilarious it was on April Fools, but often overlook the change that unified the ways certain mechanics work from the OCG in both NA and EU TCG territories. The relevant part of this is, yes, cards have to remain in the location where they triggered, called their trigger location, in order to activate, which prevented you from like getting in this weird scenario where like a monster would be sent to the graveyard for cost and you DD Crow it and then negate it, but sometimes it wouldn't. Also removing attempted summons. God, who can forget Solemn Striking while you have something like a summon limit up, and letting trap monsters not take up a spell trap zone when summoned were fantastic changes for the game. That last one was really strange because despite the fact that it was implemented in 2020, Speed Duel just kind of had to play with it during a couple of years when like Zoma the Spirit was legal, but this guidance hadn't been made permanent. They were like, listen, we're not going to make you play this card in the worst, most annoying way possible over webcams. Meatball says, I think the EU update restricting usage of lewd mats was a great change. Okay, so the update didn't actually restrict porny mats. It restricted non-Konami mats, which is where the porny ones are. But already you can't bring a lewd mat to locals. The clarification that if the intended target was illegal, you are not forced to pick an alternative target, but the activation is rolled back was such a good quality of life change. I don't know when this changed, but it was so important because frequently what would happen is due to the game state in Yu-Gi-Oh being super complex, a target would be illegal and then the worst feeling ever would occur. I watched something like this happen during ABC format. I was playing some stupid fucking hero deck, probably Toad Hero. Person to my left goes, ABC activate. The only other card on field is unaffected and therefore an illegal target. And the opponent goes, that's not a legal target. And they go, oh, okay. And they go, but there is in fact a legal target on your board. And I remember watching that and going, that's not how Yu-Gi-Oh should work. Finally, double sleeving. Why did it take us this long? When I first got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, I was coming from Magic the Gathering in like 2013, 2014, right at the end of Dragon Ruler format. And as a result, I double sleeved my deck. Like there weren't a ton of expensive cards in it, but I didn't want any of them to get damaged. And my opponent for game 1 was like, I hate to do this to you, but I gotta tell you, the double sleeves are illegal. Thankfully, they were like, I'm not gonna call a judge, you know, we can play it out. But I went to the judge afterwards and I was like, are you fucking with me right now? And they said, shockingly no. The removal of priority. Being able to resolve data on summon was the absolute nuts, and I can only imagine how much worse Yu-Gi-Oh would still be if this mechanic were still in the game. Okay, firstly, priority is still in the game. You just don't have ignition effect priority, which is what they're talking about here. You can still use fast effects by retaining turn player priority, but absolutely correct. There were also a bunch of really annoying things you could do with priority, like retaining priority and triggering malicious. Like, you don't necessarily have to use the effect on the monster that gives you the ability to do priority to retain it and then activate an ignition effect. Super annoying. Thankfully no longer around, unless you're playing Ultimate Time Wizard, in which it is around. Obligatory misgendering rule mention. So many people told me the game's going to end. It's gone woke. And guess what? Not a bad rule. Deck size limit. I mean, you all have probably heard about this by now, but the classic 2,222 card deck with the huge shuffler contraption. I like this one. All right, let me read this one out. Let's think of a scenario in which it could be applied. On a chain where a set monster is being flip summoned, or if a Gemini monster is being normal summoned a second time, that monster that would be summoned is already considered face up in the monster zone. Previously, these monsters were not considered on the field during this window. Man, Yu-Gi-Oh used to suck, man. I understand why they changed the field spell rules, allowing both players to control one and making it so the card wasn't destroyed, allowed the design space to open up significantly, but it had two casualties: Closed Forest and, of course, Gear Town. May they rest in peace. Let me tell y'all something, though. I think they should bring it back. I know it's impossible now because there's been a decade of field spell design since then that completely bucks this understanding, but what's the difference between a field spell and a continuous spell if there's not a consequence? Valence? Fuck it. Oh my god, Valence is unplayable. Nothing changes. Moving pen zones to the spell trap zones. Man, that is absolutely true. Back in Master Rule 3, people just put the pen scales wherever the hell they felt like, and it sucked shit. You could play a 5-round local against 5 pen players, and they all put their scales in entirely different locations. People still get away with this on the field spell zone. Sometimes you get the field spell in the center column. Like, they put it where the field center is. They put the field spell zone in the field center. You got to stop that behavior. When someone does that, you got to be like, nah, come on, man. You put that shit where it belongs. The reason they moved them back, I think, had nothing to do with the fact that, like, this board was alienating for newer players who were like, what's with the new zones? And everything to do with the fact that people figured out, like, a control deck could just play pendulums and get 2 more places you could put cards on your field. So, like, you could play Card of Demise and Metal Foes, theoretically, right? This was responsible for Cleafort Demise, a really cool deck that emerged at the end of the NAWCQ season in 2016, where you would just, like, draw 3 floodgates and a Card of Demise. You'd set the floodgates, you'd Card of Demise, and you draw like 2 more and a Scout, and you'd just be like, Scout, search monolith, scale, set, go! And then you would play no Yu-Gi-Oh! It's funny to see the myriad of ways in which Yu-Gi-Oh! Has changed, and it's funnier to think of the reasons why it was forced to. Now I hope in 2025 they don't ban being a quirked up white boy who's goated with the sauce. See you next time. Thank you, Ashizu Cards and Kit Kalos. You know, it was 40 before this.